Doesn't bother me.
Okay.
I'd rather have the singers in the frame.
Thank you.
All right. Good.
In just a moment,
All right.
we will.
Are you going to announce us? Or
Yes,
do we
yes, I
start-
will. I will introduce you, and you'll do a song. Then we'll
Okay.
do some churchy stuff, and then we'll bring you back for a
Okay.
couple more songs,
Right.
and then we'll introduce Victor, and then after Victor, there will be one more song from you, and then we'll have a conversation.
Okay.
Ed,
That was also the promo sign for turn off your telephone.
Ed, are you here?
Oh, hi, Dean.
Yes,
There's a meeting today, right, after the service?
yes, and I have to start right now, so I got to let you go. Are you coming?
Oh, okay, I'll come.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to Community Church of Boston. I'm going to pin myself here and say, there we are. It's a special morning because Luis Guzman just walked in the door, and I'm saying hello to him. It's a special one because we have everything up on a TV screen that I'm showing you now. So that the physical attendees can watch the service and hear it too through a microphone. Here's Luis. Luis, say good morning to everybody.
Hello,
Good
Louise.
morning, Luis.
Buenos dias. He brought pupusas for after the service before the fiscal meeting that happens after church today. You're welcome to join us, and we encourage you to join us if you're a member. Pretty boring stuff, but important stuff about our finances that we're required to do every year. I've got a candle that I found in one of the drawers of Bob Datilio, whose estate we are involved in clearing out. We have many books from his collection, and I'm going to light a candle for Bob Datilio. What I noticed is something interesting, which is that, well, I'll show you after I light it. Can I light it? Come on, come on, come on. Gracias, Don Luis. What I'll show you about the candle is that it's crooked.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And as I show you this, I notice some of the people that have joined us this morning. And I saw this crooked candle, and it reminded me of this beautiful little lyric. I walk a crooked road to get where I am going. To get where I am going, I must walk a crooked road. And only when I am looking back, I see the straight and narrow. I see the straight and narrow when I walk a crooked road. I sing a lonesome song to anyone who'll listen. To anyone who'll listen, I will sing my lonesome song. And when I hear you singing too, the sorrow sounds so hopeful. The sorrow sounds so hopeful when I sing my lonesome song. And a lonesome song will be my true companion when all else has abandoned for singing of their own. And a lonesome song will fill my days with gladness, make joy out of sadness when I sing this lonesome song to you. And I won't sing the rest of the song, and I don't have a holder, so I have to blow it out.
That's lovely.
And say good morning to everybody. I hope your crooked road is made smooth by joining us in friendship and fellowship here at Community Church of Boston. We are internationally joined today by some marvelous players. There's a record that has gets a lot of play in my car, and it's a record that these two made about the songs and the life of James Connolly. and I can't get enough of it. And there are several other records and books that Matt has written, and they join us from Bern, Switzerland. Is that right, Bern?
That's
correct.
correct.
Yes, yes. They've been here physically a number of times, and we've loved their music, and the connection with Victor was strong, so we thought we'd have him this morning. Hey, Matt and Yvonne, you're so welcome here, and thanks for joining us despite the different times.
It's a
Thank you.
pleasure.
It's a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
So we're going to start with a song called Daybreak. Sunlight pouring through the trees on the mountain, flooding across the flowering meadow in the morning.
And the stream is running,
Running through the rocks and down to the valley, bounding on to join in the river in the morning. Daybreak, daybreak, daybreak over creation. Sunlight throwing back the veil of deception, with the sight forever becoming in the morning.
and the stream is
Running, slipping through the grim reaper's fingers, marrying with every becoming in the morning. Daybreak, daybreak, daybreak over creation. Everywhere is motion. Turn around, eruption and explosion. Turn it around and see. Sunlight glistening through the sweat on my forehead, running down my face as I labor in the morning.
and now I'm
Running, following the stream up the mountain, singing out my song for the wander in the morning. Daybreak, daybreak, daybreak over creation. Daybreak, daybreak, daybreak over creation.
Matt Callahan and Yvonne Moore. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
welcome.
Did you write that, Matt?
Yes, I did.
All right.
Yes, and coming back to the Crooked Road, it's from a record called Burn the Boogeyman. Thinking of all these traditions with fire burning to, loosen, or it's like what is in New Mexico.
The Burning
They
Man,
also-
yeah.
In fall, exactly.
And so that's on one of your records?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I'll look for it. It's beautiful. Anyway, here we are in Copley Square, broadcasting in the snowstorm. It's a very mild, beautiful snowstorm. There is also a big activity on the square. It's called Winter Walk, and it's a walk to end homelessness. And I'll tell you that there's a big stage and a lot of people out there. And I know that Mayor Wu is making an appearance. Why do I know? Because there's a whole bunch of firefighters and police with signs protesting her vaccination mandate. And it angered me. I don't know. I just want to say, dudes, they cured polio. It's this thing called science. But I don't want to get into that conversation right now. What I want to do is show you something really cool. If I can. No, can I? No, I can't. What it is a beautiful picture of young Victor Wallace with my two uncles. I'll have to try and print it out and show you before the hour is out, or figure out how to share the screen, because it's not sharing right now for reasons unknown. Maybe if I highlighted that. Anyway, in addition to Victor being a close friend to this church, having presented here a number of times on different books that he wrote, and knowing about Victor's longtime periodical editorial work on the periodical Democracy and Socialism, or is it Socialism and Democracy? One of the two.
That's the latter. Yep.
Latter. I just am very proud of the family connection as well, because Victor knows four of my five uncles. And in this picture, there's two of them, Jim and David. By the way, my uncle Jim is joining us. And hi, Jim. And I was hoping that Liga would be here too, my aunt, but I don't see her yet. Maybe she's on the YouTube. If you are, family greetings down from Massachusetts to New Jersey. My Uncle David lives in upstate New York, and so it's a little kind of family gathering, and I hope you indulge me in my little obsessions with program stuff that I love to do. I want to tell you about a couple of things that are coming up. First of all, next week is a beautiful program. It's That Many Poets. 6 poets. The program is by the Poets Theater, and it's called A Murmuration of Poets, M-U-R-M-U-R-A-T-I-O-N, of Poets number 2. We did a program like this about 6 months ago, and we're back, and we're really looking forward to an all poetry couple hours with these wonderful poets. David Goulet, who joins us this morning, hi David, is a part of this, and he's the organizer of Poets Theater, which has brought us a number of wonderful presentations in addition to poetry. So that's a marvelous program next Sunday, February 20th, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Also, I want to tell you about tomorrow. We've had a very busy weekend. We had a program last Friday, a music program, as we do every Friday. It's called Winter Fridays, and we're having sort of a virtual house concerts. The important operative thing is that all proceeds from virtual ticket sales goes to the performers, and we do that to appreciate their cultural work and to also realize that during this COVID time, it's been hard for lots of performers. So it's been really wonderful run, and it'll go through March. We have a bunch of great programs. I'll try to put the list of Friday concerts in the chat before we're done here. Also tomorrow, an incredible program at noon Eastern time. It's two wonderful presenters. One is named Layla Farsak. She's Palestinian American chair of the government department of UMass Boston. And she will be joined from Jerusalem by Jeff Halper, who is the founder and director of the Israeli Committee to End House Demolitions. And the two of them will present. We have quite a full house of people already, so join us tomorrow at noon if you'd like to talk about that. And listen to these two presenters talk about strategies for a just peace. Palestine-Israel Strategies for a Just Peace. Tomorrow at noon, I will put that link in the chat as well when I get a chance. Or you can go to communitychurchofboston.org and find the Eventbrite link. It's a free webinar sort of event, but it has the option for you to donate, and the proceeds are divided evenly between Jeff Halper's organization, Israeli Committee to End House Demolitions, and the Gaza Mental Health Foundation, which is founded and directed by our own amazing activist, Nancy Murray. So that's tomorrow. Next, a little reading. I haven't even read it yet. I don't know what it is, but this is Eduardo Galeano, Children of the Days. It's a day book set in vignettes, as Galeano is so want to do and talented. Let's see, today is February 13th, and there's an entry for every day of the year. Eduardo Galeano, my favorite author. I have a whole pile of his books here along with Bob's books, but those are mine. And we read them every chance we get. Here's for February 13th. The title is The Danger of Playing. In the year 2008, Miguel Lopez Rocha, who was fooling around on the outskirts of the Mexican city of Guadalajara, slipped and fell into the Santiago River. Miguel was 8 years old. He did not drown. He was poisoned. The river contained arsenic, sulfuric acid, mercury, chromium, lead, and furans dumped into its water by Aventis, Bayer, Nestle, IBM, DuPont, Xerox, United Plastics, Celanese, and other companies from countries that prohibit such largesse. Mexican city of Guadalajara. We are ready to invite Victor Wallace to share his presentation. I was having a thought that this could have been on Mother's Day, but Valentine's Day is just as well. We are so glad to have Victor share this presentation. I saw some snippets of it. Now I get to see the whole thing about his mom, the renowned painter Diane Esmond. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Victor is, in addition to a great friend of the church, along with his partner Inez, who is on this call with us today, is also a professor of government at Berklee College of Music. Victor, take it away. Welcome. And before we end, I really want to show off that picture, and I'll try to get it up there before we are finished here.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Dean. It's wonderful to be here with the community church and with all my friends, including some who heard an earlier presentation of this, you mentioned Mother's Day. Actually, that was the first time I put something about my mother on my Facebook page. I did it on Mother's Day, and I got more likes than I have on anything else I've put on Facebook, including from many quite unexpected sources, including a lot of people with whom I'd worked politically in some way or other, and who I didn't particularly expect to take an interest in that. And actually, that was, in terms of the family thing, it was then that I reconnected with Liga, whom I hadn't seen for 40 years. She put a like, and I got back in touch with her. Anyway, it's great to be here, and it's a wonderful occasion. It's an opportunity. I mean, the previous times that I've spoken here at the community church, it has all been for books of mine, and this has been a wonderful opportunity to promote them. This is a quite different type of reflection, let's say, because my interest and my goal and my desire is to gain recognition for my mother as an artist. My mother died 40 years ago, and I had long postponed the process of giving really serious attention to her work. Some of this delay you'll understand from what I will be talking about when I give the narrative. But I did want to say that the first opportunity I had to make a public presentation was offered by the Marxist Education Program in November. They did it on their day after Thanksgiving, an annual day when they do something different. And it arose quite unexpectedly for me. I had no even idea of proposing to them that I give such a presentation. But Michael Lardner had invited me after I gave a presentation about my book on their show back in May of last year. And we were just talking informally. And I was telling him that I was trying to promote my mother's work. And he said, why not do it here? And of course, as you'll gather from my narrative that I'll be giving, there are all kinds of ironies in the fact that my first public presentation should have been at the Marxist Education Project. But I think the Community Church of Boston continues in this fine tradition of gathering progressive and radical people with a strong political interest. And even though my mother was not, let's say, engaged in politics as such, her work and even the way she raised me have some connection, which I think is worth exploring, and which I think you'll begin to understand through my narrative. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now, if I can find the way to do this. Yes, I think I see this thing down here. We will get this. Slideshow. Here we are. Good. So I will. Oh, it's not advancing. What do I have to do?
Use the other arrow, Victor.
The other arrow?
Yeah, try that.
Oh, yes, good. Sorry, I was clicking on the wrong arrow. Okay, yeah. That should be the last glitch. We shouldn't have any more glitches. This is the iconic photo portrait of my mother done in 1950 when she was 40 years old. It's okay, thanks. But I want to concentrate while I start. I'd like everybody to concentrate on this painting, which represents, in a sense, the culmination of her achievement, in my view, an extraordinary painting, which, to get an idea of its dimensions, it's 7 feet wide and 5 feet high. It's the tropical forest, which is, I think, I wish everybody could be seeing this all the time. It's an extraordinary piece of work. But let me then begin the narrative. Diane Esmond was born in 1910. Although her family's home was in Paris, she was born in London. Her father, Edward Esmond, born Edward Ezra, my grandfather, identified with the British Empire. He had been born and raised in India, descended from a long line of Jewish merchants, which 2 generations earlier had moved there from Baghdad. Her mother, Valentine, my grandmother, was the daughter of a French Jewish entrepreneur who, in partnership with his brother, was one of the major European pioneers of the oil industry. And I should mention that my mother, from this, you might gather her nationality, her formal nationality was British, but she lived all her life really primarily in France, except for the years of the war and post-war period when she was in the United States. And she was bilingual, English and French. Diane was the second of 3 sisters. And this is the great photo from 1929. I think, I don't know if you can see all the inscriptions, but my mother is the one at the bottom center, and her parents are the couple on the, let's see, I can move the arrow around. This is her father and her mother, her older sister, Sybil, and her younger sister, Lulu. They were educated essentially by private tutors. I don't know when Diane began to think of herself as an artist, but I have the sense that it was in early childhood. She differed from her sisters in being less attuned to the social aspirations instilled at that time in the daughters of the bourgeoisie. She partly pursued goals of a kind that her father would have hoped to see achieved by a son, like winning the girls' golf championship in Britain at the age of 16. She was the last of her sisters to marry, and unlike her sisters, deliberately chose a husband, my father. Whoops, oh, they skipped one. How did this happen? Yeah, my father, Robert Wallis, whose occupation, that of a doctor, was defined by something other than finance. The most vivid thing I remember her telling me about her childhood was of her father, who had fought for the British Empire in South Africa in 1898, holding her high up above his head and telling her to proclaim, "I'm a big, brave soldier boy," for which she would be rewarded each time with a succulent dried apricot. After her death, I found a copy of a book of poetry that she had inscribed to her father in 1942 with the words, "From your disciple and only son." What I wish I could have known is what it was that inspired her to choose that particular collection to give him. It was the complete poetical works of Percy Bysshe Shelley, the most revolutionary of all English poets, greatly loved by Marx. And just to illustrate that, I want to just say a couple of stanzas from his song, Shelley's Song to the Men of England. Men of England, wherefore plough for the lords who lay ye low? Wherefore weave with toil and care the rich robes your tyrants wear? Wherefore feed and clothe and save from the cradle to the grave those ungrateful drones who would drain your sweat, nay, drink your blood? And then later on in the poem, the seed ye sow, another reaps, the wealth ye find, another keeps, the robes ye weave, another wears, the arms ye forge, another bears. Sow seed, but let no tyrant reap, find wealth, let no impostor heap, weave robes, let not the idle wear, forge arms in your defense to bear. So I have no idea whether my mother read this poem, but this was the spirit of the poet whose collection she gave to her father. And I've often asked myself why she chose this, why she had this spirit, because although she always respected me, she nonetheless was, if anything, alarmed by my leftist convictions, which were already strong by the time I was 16. But I could see, even without probing her taste for Shelley, that while she shunned political debate, she was able to extend herself humanly in a manner that transcended the limitations of her class origins. This broad human sympathy showed itself already in the subjects of her early paintings. I should just mention this painting shows folds because we got it in a rolled up condition for reasons that will become clear in a moment. I can only guess at what she might have thought about the Popular Front, which formed a coalition government in France in 1936. But these men in a cafe that she painted around that time must surely have been among its supporters. Her subjects in that period also included performing artists of various kinds, especially dancers and clowns. Some of them, let's say some of the other, your screen, some of them with African traits. But her work was interrupted first by my birth, and then by the Nazi invasion of France. All her paintings from the 1930s were left behind when we fled the German occupation, I still a toddler, in early 1940. As I learned only recently, the paintings were seized by the Nazis, and held by them for a time in the Jeux de Paume Museum in Paris. According to the Nazis' own records, most of the works were then destroyed. This is the document that describes some of them, vernichtet, or in French, anéanti, meaning literally annihilated, with reference to these works. But a few, including the ones I've just shown you, were rescued from a train headed for Germany around the time of the liberation of Paris in 1944. And this document just shows the return, which is the Madame Esmond is probably my grandmother to whom they were returned. The big painting of the clown that I showed you a moment ago later hung for decades in my father's New York office, but it was only from recent research that I became aware of its wartime trajectory. And it's important for me to remark that my mother never said anything to me about what had happened to her works during that period. This is one of those famous types of silence that attend some of these traumatic events. But one of the ironies of Diane Esmond's story is that the very erasure, for the most part, of her earlier period of creativity is what has, in the last few years, begun to bring her name before a wider public. As I have been contacted via the website by scholars in France and in Austria with an interest in learning about her career. Escaping from France, we traveled by car through Spain and Portugal and by ship to New York. This opened what was surely the most difficult period of Diane's life. And this is from how she looked in that period. In terms of her work, although she got a studio outside our home, she was not inspired. Aesthetically, she missed both Paris and rural France. This is a photo of her in the New York studio with a painting for which she got the idea, the subject and the sketches in France. She came back and did it here. But it was not until she started making long trips back to France after 1945, culminating in her complete return to that country by 1956, that this void, missing Paris and rural France, the aesthetic void, would begin to be filled. The New York years left a lasting imprint on her life. Her relationship with my father had always been an improbable one. He had represented a partial leap out of her social milieu, but their differences of temperament and commitment were insurmountable. The impact of all this was only amplified by the conditions of exile. She went through years of psychoanalysis, her liberation being finally achieved with her definitive move back to Paris. And this is from the terrace of the apartment that she moved into in 1956. My brother Spencer was born in May 1942. By Diane's own account, she never bonded with him in his infancy as closely as she had done with me. Of course, it was only many years later that she told me this, but its consequences were both immediate and enduring. This talk is about Diane and not about her children, but the fact that I alone am in a position to give it is a tragic outcome of Diane's exile and unhappiness. Spencer died by his own hand just a year after her death. This is Spencer in his last year of high school. And this is him a bit later. I should say a bit more about my brother and myself insofar as this sheds light on our mother's life. Spencer and I were both, from birth until the ages of 6 and 10, respectively, under the care of a live-in nanny, a middle-aged English woman, a career nanny named Daisy Tuckey. And this, by the way, accounts for the fact that my primary language is English, even though my mother was bilingual and my father was French. My mother had to make a special effort, which she began when I was 5, to teach me French. And my father, who spoke English with a strong French accent, always preferred to speak English. And this was a sort of a bit of tension between them, because she wanted me to speak only French with them. But the point, though, the main point here is that the fact of our being raised not by my mother gave a special character to our interactions with her. And we responded, my brother and I, in distinct ways. For Spencer, what was uppermost was to gain her loving attention, of which he could never receive enough. For me, the outcome was, in part, to make me take a detached view of power relations in the household, which I perceived at the time as comprising an unfair disconnect between who did the most for us on a day-to-day basis and who would ultimately have the larger role in our lives. I've long seen my recognition of this class contradiction within our home as the first step in my political awakening. The contrast between my brother's life and mine continued to play out in later years. I put down roots in the US and adapted to communicating with my mother for the greater part of each year through a steady stream of letters. And I want to read a bit from some of her letters just to give you an idea, both of her and of our relationship. This first letter was written probably from Ischia in Italy. And she writes, this is about partway down. I only arrived this evening, so can't tell you what is in store for me. All I know is that it won't be easy, because my work won't depend on what I see, but what I am, underlined. I have been through this so often, and in spite of me knowing all about it, it never changes. My feelings and thoughts and hopes change every minute. hope and despair, passion and hate are all tearing themselves apart within me until I pull myself together and achieve what I think is worthwhile. I have never yet gone home beaten. I couldn't bear it. And I might say that this replaces what one might other hope to find in someone's diary or journal, these letters. I'm not aware that she ever kept a diary or journal, but her letters, of which I've kept, all the ones really from that period to the end of her life, tell some of the story. But I want to read from one other letter, which is the only one on which she put a date, because she usually just put the day of the week, and I had to determine the date by looking at the postmark before I filed the letters. But this one was written on my 17th birthday, and so it was dated September 16th, 1955. And starting partway down, she says, I can't help going back to September 16th, 1938. Then I felt very strongly what it was to be a mother. You were my first baby, and I adored you with a passion that only a mother can have for her child. You could not benefit by it. Later on, I had my worries, and also you suffered silently, and I failed to be the mother that I had hoped to be. It is no use for me to cry over spilt milk. I have to switch because I can't see the top. It is no use for me to cry over spilt milk, although I could. So I look at the happier side of life, such as our relationship now. You understand more or less my life, and I am torn between two countries, the one where my home should be, where you and Spencer and Papa are, and the other, understood, the country where I need to be able to thrive, where I am myself, where my heart and soul go into my work. I have chosen Paris. I can't grow in New York. In doing this, I have failed as a mother. And you, very sweetly, tell me that it is replaced by a real friendship. Fortunately, you understand and accept this as well as you can. So, my sweet darling, let me tell you that at least if you have no mother, you have the greatest friend you could possibly have, a friendship which, even if you do not feel it, is full of the deep love of a mother. So that was, again, this is the mid-50s. And in the meanwhile, in terms of the contrast with my brother, while I was already sort of accepting the situation, the distance and filling it with correspondence, Spencer, by contrast, had a turbulent adolescence, being bounced around from one boarding school to another, including one in Scotland, and eventually, after graduating from college in the US, moving to France, where he lived to some extent culturally alienated for the rest of his life. The one big bright spot being the family he started, but for which he sadly felt he could no longer provide guidance. And I might mention, he had 2 sons and 2 daughters with whom I'm close, and his younger daughter is herself an artist and is taking an interest also in discovering the story of her grandmother. Diane lived in Paris from 1956 to 1962, enjoying a vibrant social life that brought her into contact with other artists, including people from the world of theater, notably Jean-Louis Barrault, who, together with his partner Madeleine Renaud, was at the center, really, of French theatrical life in that period, as was also the performer Marie Belle. My mother designed stage sets and costumes for several plays, including a 1963 Broadway production starring Marie Belle. Oops. That's the playbill. And sponsored by the French government, of Racine's classic Berenice, and that's Marie Belle on the right with my mother's designed costume. In 1962, Diane married her second husband, Jean Don, a cartoonist who had worked for the commercial weekly Paris Match, and they moved to the small village of Béust, about 30 kilometers west of Paris. They lived in a large 200-year-old stone house that would be her home until her death in 1981. The property also included a large stone carriage house, the upper floor of which became her studio. So now we're going to get into her works, and I would immediately mention that her post-war work differed markedly from her paintings of the 1930s. And by the way, while we're doing this, if anyone wants to comment, feel free. But in her newer works after the war, there were fewer depictions of people and more landscapes, buildings, and still lifes. At the beginning of this period, there was also a move toward sharper contours, often with heavy dark lines separating different parts of the composition. Later, though, the sharp delineation would recede and the landscapes would become more abstract. And I would mention the dimensions of these differ quite a bit, but these still lifes are fairly small size. And most of them are kind of average, maybe 2.5 feet wide and 4 feet high. But there are a few very big ones, which I'll mention when we come to them. So I'm just going to go through these slowly and give a little bit of time for you to look at each one, and not too much. I think this one is based on an Italian scene. So a vital dimension of Diane Esmond's creativity was her travels. She never painted on site. But always did sketches, often with notes, which she would then take back to her studio to transform into paintings. She made working trips to Venice, Vicenza, and Ischia in Italy, to southern France, and most importantly, to the Caribbean. She had been to Haiti in the 1950s, from which this painting was inspired, and later went to Martinique, and finally made several trips to the island of St. Lucia, where she immersed herself most deeply in the tropical forest. I've tried to put these various paintings in chronological order, but they're not always dated, so it isn't really possible. But this is one that I liked especially, and oops, it's not. Oh, here we go. Oops. Yeah. And there are often multiple paintings with similar contents and variations of it. So this is a rather selective sample, but this coffee grinder comes back, as you'll see. I think we missed one of the coffee grinder ones. And in Paris, she painted scenes from the industrial eastern part of Paris. Like this one, there are many barges in the Seine. And this is one of the beginning of the tropical landscapes. This is a fairly big one, maybe 3 or 4 feet wide and 5 feet high. Yes, this one and the next are an example of 2 different ones of the similar scene. And I'm guessing that this one came first. She would work over subjects to get them right, or get them exactly the way she wanted. Here's the other one with the common palm tree on the left, which you can see looking at the 2 in succession. And here, this one and the next are another pair of landscapes where you can see one can only speculate which one she did first. I'll go back and forth again so you can take them in.
Victor, how big are these landscapes?
These landscapes, I would say that they're a good 4 feet wide and 3 feet high. Yep.
Oh, pretty big. Yeah.
Yep. This is the great Provençal landscape. This one reminds me of Cézanne. Another one's quite similar area. These are all fairly big, maybe 4 feet wide typically. And you can see all these at your leisure on her website, which is simply dianeesmond.com, under gallery. You click on that and you see these. Then back to the circus theme, which she had shown before, was already in the 30s, but then again, the clown. She had a fascination with clowns, whom she saw, I think, in part as sad figures. Another circus scene. So, beginning in 1950, Diane had numerous solo exhibitions on both sides of the Atlantic, receiving favorable reviews, eliciting comparisons with notable Impressionist and post-Impressionist painters. A March 1953 review in the French magazine Art, or Arts, which is it's reproduced here, but it's hard to read. The review describes her work as, quote, showing the expressive force, the vigorous use of color, and the extraordinary soundness of composition of this artist, whose talent is akin to that of the greatest, unquote. A London commentator in the British magazine Arts Review of June 1978 wrote of her tropical forest paintings, quote, "You feel you are actually in the middle of these forests, but there is never any sense of oppression," unquote. And in the words of the London Times reviewer, quote, "The combination of abstract harmonies and the impression left by actual landscapes is one of which the eye does not tire." This is one of the exhibits of that period. So despite all these favorable reviews and recognition, what eluded her was commercial success. Few of the works that she showed found buyers. I attribute this to a combination of factors. Most fundamentally, she was not in sync with the mid-20th century art market, which tended to be experimental, favoring highly intellectual and/or narrowly geometrical and/or randomized/sensationalistic forms of expression. For better or for worse, and despite the friendships she had with certain individual artists, she worked for the most part in isolation from the general trends and controversies of her time. She was more appalled than intrigued by the iconoclastic works that filled the showplaces of contemporary graphic art. As her sketchbooks make clear, she hewed to an older ethic of tireless search for a certain harmony of expression, distilling the familiar while still also seeking to bring it to a higher level, certainly respecting complexity. The notes on her drawings would remind her of what she directly saw, but when she came to the canvas, she deployed the colors, often using a palette knife, freely, imaginatively, often in surprising combinations, yet with great care. Now, this again is one of three. These are a bit smaller, maybe 2.5 feet wide and 2 feet high. They're of a similar central object. I'll show you these again in go back and see the three of them in comparison. Here it's become more complex. And again, I have to say that I'm speculating as to the sequence, but you can just see the way she works over a given subject. And again, these are not the only ones. There are a few more of those with that same central theme. And I find it quite interesting. And then there are some of the human figures that she did. The bathers. This is a larger one, maybe 5 feet wide. So the what I was saying about her approach and her techniques and her style could all result in superb paintings, but was not enough to gain her wide recognition. Her relative marginalization from the contemporary scene reflects also her distaste for any form of self-promotion. Partly as a woman in those years, well, let me pause my remarks to say that this is again one of the very big ones, 7 feet wide and 5 feet tall, a yellow studio, she called it. And then its companion of equal size. Those of you who have been in our home have seen this at the entrance, the red studio, as she called it. And then one more very big one, same size. Oops, this one. Anyway, I was saying that in terms of her reluctance to promote herself, partly as a woman in those years, but also in terms of her temperament, which was not that of a performer. She could not imagine herself as a public figure. Insofar as her earlier life had cast her into a spotlight, it was for pursuits, not only golf, but also horse racing, that flowed from her social background and had nothing to do with her artistic vocation. This is a gouache, by the way. It's sort of a watercolor, but with a substance to make it opaque. And this is a smaller scale, you might say, less than 3 feet wide. She was in the awkward position of wanting to become known for who she really was, as expressed in her art, but of having personal baggage, which in the framing that it would likely receive at the hands of critics, would tend to trivialize her accomplishment. This is another gouache, quite a small one, only maybe 2 feet wide. And these are a couple of ink drawings, again, of which she made maybe 15 at least. All with a kind of the forest theme. These were fairly late in her life. And this is gouache again. So the same themes that you find with a tropical forest. And she did a number with this orange background. This is where the sort of abstracting from the forest scenes, and you no longer recognize any live objects, but it's still very much the feeling of the foliage in a sense. And this at the very end of her life, she was painting these very dark, abstract canvases. Let me come back to this one that I showed you at first. After Diane died, the works she left were placed in storage in a Paris suburb. It was not until I was fully settled in the Boston area in 1994 that I was in a position, together with my life partner Inez, who's with us, to take charge of them. And I should mention that Inez has played an amazing role in the process of getting all this together, assembling, helping to catalog the works, looking things up, and encouraging me in all possible ways to pursue this. So this is very much a product of her work as well as mine. So it was only in 1994 that I was in a position to take charge. And they were shipped in a huge container to our home in Somerville, Massachusetts the following year. Many of them now grace our walls, but an even greater number sit in our climate-controlled basement. Although we held a party to celebrate their arrival, it was years before I found the time and the opportunity to make them more widely known. I owe a major breakthrough to my having joined the faculty of the Berklee College of Music, where I became part of a big department that embraces all the non-music disciplines, including, of course, art history. Another irony in terms of getting recognition from my mother is that it was thanks to my political education efforts among my colleagues that I became acquainted with the department's senior art historian, Henry Tate, who had inspired decades of music students with his enthusiastic presentation of the canon of the visual arts. After years of casual interaction with Henry, I was able to persuade him that a visit to our house to see my mother's paintings might be worth his professional time. When he did finally show up, he was bowled over by their quality and immediately offered to curate an exhibit of them at Berklee. For the whole of the following academic year, I had the distinct pleasure of seeing more than a dozen of my mother's works in the lobby outside our departmental offices. The show was inaugurated on September 26, 2013, at an event at which Henry and 3 other art history colleagues lectured briefly. This was the publicity that Henry arranged for the event, the front and back of a kind of postcard size announcement using that Provençal landscape. Lectures by at the event by other art history colleagues. And the filming of this event, which was done by Lara Bonventre and put together the film directed by Inez, sparked the creation of the Diane Esmond website, where the video of the talks is posted on the page called Retrospective, and a full photo inventory of Diane's works appears under the category of Art Gallery. The ensuing steps in Diane's trajectory are now being written. 2 years ago began the contacts that enabled us to add the page on Nazi plunder to her website. And now Diane is engaging in an audience that has been determined partly by my contacts, but with that, it's an audience that perhaps she would not have imagined seeking, but which I trust she would have grown to welcome. As we have seen, a politics rooted in popular aspirations and solidarity is not foreign to her basic impulses. Her human outreach, even if she didn't articulate it as such, represented a step away from her bourgeois background. Beyond this, and in a way that she could not have foreseen, her depiction of the tropical forest in capturing its glowing essence may help deepen people's appreciation of the vital mix of species life that we must fight to preserve. So this is the end of my formal presentation, and I hope that in the course of seeing the pictures, you've been able to appreciate their quality, but also to understand the contradictions, the complexity of my relationship to my mother, both of our relationships to the times in which we live, and how, in a way, despite the ironies of involved in thinking of our present audiences, the audiences that I've been able to put together with the help of my friends, that in sort of juxtaposition with the milieu in which she grew up and all the contradictions of that, that it nonetheless shows a certain evolution, which may allow us to move forward with some hope. So I'm going to terminate the screen sharing and hand it back to Dean, and after that we'll be able to have some discussion.
Thank you, Victor. What a remarkable artist, and what a incredible, loving hand of work that you and Inez have done to preserve her legacy. It's just amazing, and we are going to be at that open studios, and I was just trying to think of a way to have an exhibit here at the church. This auditorium is just 2,000 square feet of all kinds of wall space everywhere, and would love to have paintings like that grace our walls for a period of time and event to celebrate it. I'm just thinking out loud. We're not professional gallery, and we're not art curators or art buyers, but it's just so remarkable, and the notion that those amazing paintings live in the basement all the time is really just wants one to find ways to bring them to the light. Anyway, I have to say thank you, first of all, Victor and Inez, and I also have to say that I committed a huge boo-boo. I forgot to invite Matt and Yvonne to do their big spot, which is normally called a musical message, and it's 2 songs before the presentation. So I apologize for that, and I hope that
can I do it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope we can have a nice dose now of Matt and Yvonne. How about, with my apologies, I will start with the usual that we do after the program, which is put up this little collection plate. It's a beautiful hand-woven basket from Uganda that I bought a couple years ago, right before COVID hit, and now it's our symbolic request for you to. Ooh, that's cool, isn't it? Ooh, I like that. I'm gonna even highlight that. It's just to look in the chat and find our website, and you can do PayPal or credit card, or you can send us a check. We are in need of whatever help you can offer us. And with that, I'll bring back Matt and Yvonne. Thank you for crossing the continent for us. And another thought I had, Victor, was that this would be a beautiful moment to have a gallery display, because Bob Datilio's collection of books and and research materials are all about the middle of the 20th century and the crisis that was the two world wars, and it would be just marvelous to have that while these books were still here. Anyway, Matt and Yvonne.
All right. That was a wonderful presentation, Victor.
Yes, thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you.
Perhaps these songs will fit. This one we're going to do is called Harmony, which is based on a Greek concept of harmony, not simply musical harmony, but concord and unity. And there's a couple of lines that need a bit of explanation. It starts looking for the need fires of Beltane. The Beltane fires were actually an old Gaelic tradition, Celtic tradition, and the Moran was a Gaelic word for pestilence, and the need fires were where they brought the animals who were to be protected from the pestilence through these fires, and that's what that's the explanation. You need to know what the reference is. This is a song called Harmony. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 1, 2. Looking for the need fires of Beltane. Gotta burn a hole for the cleansing rain. The mooring kills the cattle, it kills the sheep. The mooring even drinks of the tears we weep. So sing that harmony, bring that harmony here to me. Sing that harmony, bring that harmony here from me. In a distant mirror I see the flame. It was through this portal a healer came in on the wings of a melody, came to sing a song of our being free. So sing that harmony, bring that harmony to me. Sing that harmony, bring that harmony here from me. Oh, fire, burn away disease. Oh, choir, sing those harmonies. Oh, fire, burn away disease. Oh, choir, sing those harmonies. If we can expel a triumphant beast, finally the prisoner will be released. All our ancient fears we will cast away. The music of the spheres we will learn to play. So sing that harmony, bring that harmony here to me. Sing that harmony, bring that harmony here from me.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And we're to do one more, right, Dean? Okay. I chose this song because of Victor's ongoing engagement with eco-socialism and the struggle to deal with capitalism and its effects on our planet. It was inspired by a painting, another fitting connection, by a painter by the name of William Coulter, who lived in San Francisco in the 19th century. And he painted a huge canvas, which he called his masterpiece, and it was called The Burning of the Blue Light. And the burning of the blue light was what ships that were on their way down, they were in a terrible condition would shoot a blue light over up the mast to try to attract the attention of other ships so that they might be saved. This is called the burning of the blue light.
So we're running in the teeth of a 60-mile gale, and the seas are rising above the mast. And the bilge is flooding, so it's bail, boys, bail, for the breath you draw may be your last. We can beg and plead with old Neptune that he change his mind and he change it soon. But fortune's whistling another tune when you set sail, boys, the die was cast. So burn, burn, burn it bright, that we may see another morning. Burn, burn, for eyes that might see the burning of the blue light. Burn, burn, burn the blue light. Oh, well, we caught the wind under skies of blue when we joined the Pacific through the Golden Gate. From the wealthy merchants to the lowly crew, for the gold or glory our lust to save. A blind eye turned to the warning signs, from the rotten timbers to the frayed bowlines. A captain whose compass was Madeira wine, and the vessel's owners who were tempting fate. So burn, burn, burn it bright, that we may see another morning. Burn, burn, for eyes that might see the burning of the blue light. Burn, burn, burn the blue light. Got to burn it. Burn, burn, burn the blue light. See the burn, burn, burn the blue light. You got to burn, burn, burn the blue light. Burn, burn, burn the blue light. Mother Nature doesn't suffer fools glad, and woe to anyone who fails to learn. She could be the best friend anybody ever had, but a friendship, brother, you've got to earn. And to make an enemy of this true friend, trust and virtue to offend. To be nature's master, you pretend. What catastrophe just awaits his turn. So burn, burn, burn it bright, that we may see another morning. Burn, burn, for eyes that might see the burning of the blue light. Burn, burn, burn it bright, that we may see another morning. Burn, burn, for eyes that might see the burning of the blue light. Burn, burn, burn the blue light. Burn, burn, burn the blue light.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Can't get enough. Another one. How about another one?
Okay.
If I don't throw you off by asking.
No, no.
You know, here we go. This is a new song that will be on our
All right.
Oh,
new
okay.
album. All
The
right.
vinyl that we're waiting for it to appear.
Please come to Boston. We'd like to presence you physically in this room to a gang of people when
We'll do
this
that again. As soon
when
as
this
we-
tempest is past.
Yeah.
Yes.
This song was actually inspired by the burning of a town in Northern California, complete destruction, called Paradise. People may have heard of it. It was 2019. And so this is called Another Message.
Uh-huh.
heard somebody say, hold on, here's another message coming. Tell that operator, gotta open up the line. Hold on, John the Revelator writing, gotta tell the people, gotta open up their minds. Hold on, here's another message coming. Tell that operator, gotta open up the line. Hold on, John the Revelator writing, gotta tell the people, gotta open up their minds.
This ain't supposed to happen in this day and age, 'cause we got high technology. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly?
I heard somebody say, hold on, here's another message coming. Tell that operator, gotta open up the line. Hold on, John the Revelator writing, gotta tell the people, gotta open up their minds. Hold on, here's another message coming. Tell that operator, gotta open up the line. Hold on, John the Revelator writing, gotta tell the people, gotta open up their minds.
Oh yeah. So this is San Inferno, and the whole damn world's ablaze. We're calling out for volunteers. Join the fire brigade.
All around the world.
Join the fire brigade.
All around the world.
Join the fire brigade.
I heard somebody say, hold up, here's another message coming. Tell that operator, gotta open up the line. Hold on, John the Revelator writing, gotta tell the people, gotta open up their minds. Hold on, here's another message coming. Tell that operator, gotta open up the line. Hold on, John the Revelator writing, gotta tell the people, gotta open up their minds. I said, hold on, here's another message coming. Tell that operator, gotta open up the line. Hold on, John the Revelator writing, gotta tell the people, gotta open up their minds.
Wonderful.
Beautiful. I said beautiful, beautiful, and I was muted, and so I'll say it 3 more times. Thank you so much. This is just so nice to have you all here, and just so great. I hope that lots more of you will join in on our musical events on Fridays. I just put up the chat for the schedule of upcoming Friday events. One of them, at least, is somebody you know. That would be yours truly, February 25th. And the others you have to meet. We had Maura Smiley just last Friday, and I'm sorry, last Sunday's program. It was just an incredible treat, and lots of other great stuff. Hey, I just so happened that this is the latest box of books that I brought down, and I'm just taking them out to show you. This is Fernand Braudel, The Mediterranean and the Mediterranean World, 2 volumes.
Great.
Here's the next one, Edmund Wilson. There's about 20 books back there by Edmund Wilson. I don't know much about him. A biography by Jeffrey Myers. He was obsessed with Edmund Wilson. Wavell, Scholar and Soldier, the biography of one of the great Allied commanders of World War II. Now let's do some, for fun, some little, oh, this is kind of cool. A very early paperback, For Whom the Bell Tolls, that is in really bad shape. There's lots of this kind of thing, just little dime store paperbacks. The Philosophical Poets by George Santayana. And I don't know if I should put that in the philosophy or in the poetry. Look Back in Anger by John Osborne. I won't bore you with this, but it's like The Tale of Genji by Lady Murasaki. On and on. He was interested in so many things. There's every book that John Dos Passos ever wrote, because John Dos Passos had some relationship to the Sacco and Vanzetti case, which was Bob Datilio's obsession. So, folks, let's talk about art, and let's talk about Diane Esmond. those paintings in your basement. What is their future? Are you trying to get them to an audience, or is there a chance of selling them? Is there a chance of placing them in a museum, or getting them out to the world? They are so vivid, so beautiful, and I have to look at the website. That's just marvelous that they're online. They're on the website.
Well, we're seeking all those possible outlets. At the moment, we have little bites here and there from as one person who may be interested in putting one of the big ones in a public building. We're hoping, but it's slow getting started, and I'm just hoping that by creating enough of a buzz, more and more people will hear about it and begin to think that it might be worth getting it. And I'm anxious to put in places where they'll be seen by a lot of people. I'm anxious to just donate them for that type of thing. And then as far as selling is concerned, it's not so much in terms of getting revenue from them as establishing a kind of reputation for them, which you get by making some sales. So we're thinking all of those things, and coming from a position of very little experience in all these regards. So always in search of advice and ideas.
Can I say something?
Please.
I know.
There's I did put a link to Somerville Open Studios. So if you come by our house on April 30th and May 1st, we'll have many of them on display. And it's a big Somerville event. There are over 300 artists, but they accepted Diane's art for this next open studio. So please come by.
Yeah, we're right near Davis Square, so it's easy to get to by public transportation.
We will try and help publicize that Open Studios event as best we can at Community Church.
Thank you.
Hey, here's something I've got to show. I noticed that my dear Uncle Jim just turned on the video, and I was having trouble getting this up on the sharing the screen, but now I realize that I have the actual photo, and here it is.
Wow.
Let me see. I can't see it. Can you make yourself the speaker, and then I'll be able to see it? You'll come bigger on the screen. I can't really see it very well.
Oh, am I not spotlighted?
Now it is. Okay, now just hold it up a little bit.
That's up in Sussex.
So where was that?
In Sussex, when I was at the country campus.
Oh yes! Wow, amazing.
Right.
Yeah. Show yourself on the big screen again, David, so I can see it. Okay, good. Now I can see it. Yeah, that's good. Ha ha ha. Yeah.
Victor and I were in graduate school together. That's how, and he was around the corner, and he had a piano, and he had a cello, and I played the piano, and he played the cello.
Right. Yeah. Wonderful.
And
Hi,
on
Jim.
the very first, I mean, I wasn't totally apolitical, but Victor was a big part of my education. And on the very first escalation of advisors in Vietnam, Victor came over that evening and told us all what exactly the implications were. Of course, he was right on every detail.
Amazing. I don't remember that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I forget who else was there. Probably Ronald.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask Charlie if he would tell us a little bit about yesterday. There was a demonstration over in Assembly Square Mall at the Puma headquarters. Is that right, Charlie?
Yes, the Boston BDS organization. I guess it's doing it every month at the Puma headquarters. They, if you can, I'll try to find the link to their Facebook page where you can find out about it. But they've been doing it. A month ago they took a big projector and projected the words boycott right next to the Puma sign, which is on top of about a 10-story building, visible from 93 and all over East Somerville. So there's a picture of that on their Facebook page, and I think they're on their webpage too. And I've been to 2 of these demonstrations, and they're very spirited. They typically draw 30, 40, 50 people, and the first time they actually shut down the store. Yesterday, I'm sure they limited the number of people going in and out, but it was a very spirited demonstration, and it was inspiring, more lively than
and that is boycott Puma because of Puma's underwriting of Israeli soccer teams in settler colonial parts of the West Bank. And maybe we can mention that at tomorrow's event as well.
There's probably about 40 people on the picket line.
Is this coming out reversed on your screens?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not.
Very young, very spirited. And while we were there, only 2 sets of individuals went into the store.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Their Facebook is facebook.com BDS Boston.
BDS, in case anybody doesn't know, is boycott, divest, and sanction. And it's about Palestine, which we will be talking about at much length tomorrow from 12 to 2. So join us then. Join us. We have a new addition to our list of attendees, and that is our treasurer, Sandra Harris. And we're going to, as gently and gracefully morph into our fiscal meeting. And thank you all for joining us, and thank Victor and Inez especially for that beautiful presentation. I am just so moved by those large paintings and can hardly wait to see them live in person. And I want to thank Matt and Yvonne for joining us from Switzerland. And I hope we see you again soon. I will mention that they have an incredible new song about freeing Leonard Peltier. And if you want me I will forward it to you. And talk amongst yourself. I have to take this call. Ed, we're still at church. Are you on your way? Yeah, come on up. We're starting soon. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Sorry. And thank you to Uncle Jim for joining us, and thank you to all of you. You're welcome to stay on for the fiscal meeting. We're going to talk about a lot of things. Among them, I will mention to you a great triumphant moment. We have just been informed that we are the beneficiaries of a grant from the city of Boston, $100,000 to replace our back roof, which is the one over this, around this skylight that you see right above me here. And it's something we've never been able to afford to do ourselves with our own financing. And it's going to happen sometime this year. So we are rejoicing in that, and we will talk about that at our fiscal meeting as well. We were hoping to also do a reconstruction of our front facade and our rear facade, and we applied, including those two as well as the roof. We did not get the front and rear facade, but we were encouraged very vigorously to reapply for funding for those two pieces. And our hitch, our selling point was that our goal is to turn this into a state-of-the-art, energy-efficient model for the city of Boston for similar buildings. And we have started doing that by installing new air conditioning and heating that's electric heat pumps. And we are going step by step to continue on that path. And $100,000 from the city of Boston is a very welcome moment. So thank you all. And I want to ask Sandra Ruiz Harris if we should just begin the meeting or if we should wait a few minutes, take a break. At some moment, I know I'm going to want to go over and eat a couple of pupusas. That's our lunch delicacy on every Sunday. We used to have a different meal every Sunday, but with the smaller audience these days, we always have pupusas that come from a restaurant in East Boston that Luis brings to us.
Hi, Dean. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon.
Sandra!
Hello. Yes, thank you, Victor, first of all, for such a great presentation, very inspiring, very emotional, the connection with all the work and everything else, and thank Matt and Yvonne for such a beautiful music. I would say, because we are continuing the meeting and we say that we will start at 1 for other people to join us, why don't we have a small break and then we can open the mics to talk to each other. Whoever wants to say hello to other people that have not seen in a while, and we can reconvene 10 before 1. That way we can start talking informally about what the meeting is going to be, giving chance to other people to join to the formal meeting. Would that work?
That would be fine. So we're going to take a pause until 1, but we will leave the microphones open and the video cameras and talk amongst yourselves. And at 1 o'clock, we will call the meeting to order. Is that right, President Charlie?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, did you say 1 or 10 of 1? I think we should do 1 just because that we advertise that for the meeting.
Yeah, but I would suggest is we can reconvene at like at 10 because it's almost 20 minutes. Well, 5 before 1, then just to talk informally about what people may want to include in as a questions for the meeting or so forth.
Okay. You might even set up a separate chat room so that smaller groups can talk. It's a little bit overwhelming to have 20 people on at once.
Yes. Well, we have 30
Dean,
how do you do that, Charlie?
Just
let it be. Just turn the volume down.
we might have had to do that beforehand. Sorry, I should have thought of that before.
Work on that. You want me to make you host so you can have full responsibilities appertaining thereto to
Oh, sure. Go ahead, and I'll see if I can do it.
You are now the host.
Okay. Go do it. Open up chat room.
I have to leave for something here, but just Victor and Inez and Dean, I will be set up so that I have an extra bedroom here. So you're welcome to stay over anytime.
Wonderful.
As soon as that's all set up, we'd love to see you.
Thank you, Jim.
It's great to see you, Jim. Yeah.
We'll be in touch and we'll take you up on that offer.
Yeah.
Thanks so
Okay.
much. Yeah. Tio Santiago.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
So Dean, thank you again for arranging this. It's been a pleasure. I don't know if anyone has any other thoughts you'd like to share with me or ask me about anything from the presentation or whatever.
Do you remember your mom out in the street painting all the time?
Well, she never painted in the street, but she would do drawings in different places. I just saw her in her studio.
In her studio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where she would, yeah, I could go and see her and anytime when she would take a break. And unfortunately, she would usually smoke a cigarette when she ever took a break. That was part of her creative process.
That was part of the creative process of the 50s.
Yeah.
Just like pot was the 60s, I suppose.
Right. Yeah.
And now the 2020s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but Dean, do we want to shut off the live stream at this point? Are we
Yes,
going to
thank
tape
you.
the meeting?
What do you think? Should we tape the? I don't see any reason to tape the meeting.
Yeah.
We can shut off the live stream, and you would do that right now, Charlie?
Okay.
You're the host.